Sunday night's French election returns are old news now. Now it's the new race that starts until May the 7th and the runoff. And just because the polls got it right this time in the first round, there's a good argument for taking a step back to think. For the first time since World War II, neither the main center-left or center-right parties will be on the ballot in France. Instead, it's a far-right stalwart versus a 39-year-old centrist. She gave her speech in the Rust Belt northern town of Hénin-Beaumont, which she's made her bastion. He gave his in Paris. He talked of opportunity. She spoke of frustration and despair. The contrast is stark as the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots. The first round highlighted the unwinding of France into four main blocks, with the conservatives and the left eliminated from the runoff. Will the next 2 weeks exacerbate that divide between those who see globalization as an opportunity and those who have reason to fear it? Will it spark the sort of bitterness and resentment that emerged during the Brexit referendum campaign? And is Emmanuel Macron such a shoo-in to beat Marine Le Pen? Today in the France 24 debate, it's Macron versus Le Pen. With us, Paris Municipal Councillor Anne Le Breton, supporter of Emmanuel Macron. Thank you for being with us again.
Thank you. We
welcome back as well Michael Salah, who heads the National Front for the Northwestern Parisian suburban département of the Val d'Oise. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back as well to Oxford historian Sudhir Hazarisingh, who's the author of How the French Think.
Nice to see you again.
And political strategist Famke Krummüller of Open Cities. Nice to see you. The France 24 debate on Facebook and on Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Yeah, the pollsters got it right. They didn't get the turnout quite right. It was higher than they predicted. 78%, almost exactly the same number as 5 years ago. The result, though, well, it's radically different from 2012. Gone are the socialists. Gone is the center-right. Instead, and these are the official numbers now from the Interior Ministry, Emmanuel Macron on 24%, Marine Le Pen 21.3%, François Fillon just breaking the 20% mark, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon of the far left 19.5%, while the Socialist Party has its worst show since 1969. Now, 9 months ago, Emmanuel Macron was still the economy minister in the government of François Hollande. Now, he's the frontrunner to be the next president of the Republic. Eliminated, as you saw, those four names. And Emmanuel Macron, who's now spinning this as optimists versus pessimists.
In 1 year, we have changed the face of French politics. The deep, organic feeling that has always carried our people, their investment in the nation, the energy they have shown to support the collective interest, bypassing personal divisions, that is what won tonight.
Anne Le Breton, Emmanuel Macron came from a socialist government. He's not himself a socialist. You're not a socialist.
No.
When did you suddenly think to yourself, I'm going to jump ship and be with him?
Almost at the beginning, but when...
And when was the beginning? Just give us the timeline.
It was before June. But I was vice president of a small party that had a lot in common with En Marche. And I really tried to bring that small party to En Marche. And that's why I stayed back for a few months. But it wasn't that intention. And it was an immediate interest in what he was doing, because I had, and we were a lot of people, to have the same intuition that something really needed to be done, and there was a historical moment to grab.
Something needed to be done. What needed to be done? Because
the same intuition that he very strongly had, that the Socialist Party was coming to a crash. And I remember saying at that time that the fact that it was kind of the time of the right of the Républicain Party to get in was going to kind of overshadow the fact that they were in the same situation. Both those major parties were suffering terrible internal divisions and real divisions of vision. And so he had this intuition that something else, another political movement had to be created so that French people would have an alternative to vote, to turn to. Because, of course, we are very much against the Front National, that is now number...
We knew the socialists were imploding because we saw François Hollande's popularity ratings, which were at record lows. The center-right, what gave you that intuition? Because before François Fillon's parliamentary payroll scandal in January of this year, we didn't see that he would implode in this way.
Well, we thought maybe it was going to happen, you know, a little bit later. But definitely there was a sense that it was going to happen anyway. So maybe the scandals kind of precipitated something that was in the making.
Franca Krummeler, when did you start to think, Macron, he's for real?
I mean, definitely around the time that Fillon's chances were crushed by his scandals, because it was at the time it was seen as clear that he was going to make this because nobody else was anywhere close.
So no ethics scandal, no Macron?
I think so.
Do you agree with that, Sudhir?
That's one of the factors, I think very much so. But I think also, like all good leaders, he has an incredible amount of luck. And I think in this campaign, you know, you make your luck in politics. And so having a serving president who's not able to stand again, that's one piece of luck which he didn't orchestrate, but which worked out for him.
Claims he did. Claims he knew that François Hollande wasn't running. You don't agree?
Well, he told François Hollande that Our Marche was a club for youngsters. So I think what he said to François Hollande about his own intentions, I think history will tell us the full story. But so that's one piece of luck. The other, I think, enormous piece of luck that that happened was the choice of the socialist candidate. Because had it been Manuel Valls rather than Benoît Hamon, Macron would have had a slightly harder time differentiating himself as clearly as he was able to do from the other left-wing candidates.
But that wasn't the case, and Anne Le Breton will argue because there was this wind of, well, kick the bums out.
Yes, well, we're coming to the end of, I think, two kind of big historical cycles in France. One is the historical cycle on the right, which saw the creation of the Gaullist Party and its subsequent neo-Gaullist variants. That kind of historical dynamism is running out now. And the other is the cycle which François Mitterrand began in 1971 with the creation of the Socialist Party. And that, too, is coming to its end. So I think Macron was right to think that there was a kind of moment of opportunity, both because of the implosion of these two big historical forces.
All right, we'll get back to this idea of the end of a cycle, the beginning of a new one later. While Emmanuel Macron, on his first day of the runoff campaign, was visiting the Armenian Genocide Memorial here in Paris, Marine Le Pen was back on the campaign trail in Rouvroy in the north, just a few short kilometers away from Hénin-Beaumont, where she held her election night rally on Sunday, and where she spoke on Sunday, by the way, of a France that is divided and of a France that's being savagely attacked by globalization.
French people have a very simple choice to make. Either we continue on this path of complete deregulation, without borders, without protection, which leads to outsourcing, unfair international competition, mass immigration, and the free movement of terrorists. In this system, money is king. Or you can choose France, borders that protect our jobs, our purchasing power, our security, and our national identity.
Michael Salah, the first polls out, won by IFOP, gives a 20-point lead to Emmanuel Macron heading to the second round. Is it a lost cause?
First of all, I want to tell you how happy I am to be here and to listen to you, sir, saying that Emmanuel Macron's major quality is to be lucky. Well, I tend to agree with that, and I also want to say that his luck is about to run out because he's going to face an adversary that will defeat him. Why will he be defeated? Because Emmanuel Macron stands only for interests, and Marine Le Pen fights for core beliefs. And the number one core belief that Marine Le Pen fights for is the survival of France as we've known it, as a great country that has a special part to play in the world, in philosophical terms, in political terms, and also in economic terms. And today, France is under threat, and it is under threat, notably because of the policies of François Hollande. And Emmanuel Macron is actually none but the heir of François Hollande. And the French will discover that because they were kind of fooled. But like someone said, you can fool some people sometime, but not all the people all the time. So now the days of reckoning for this lucky man are over, and in a few days, he will face a real serious adversary in a debate, and he will be crushed because he's no man for the part. I mean,
but we saw them in debates in the first round, and Macron held his own. Marine Le Pen never scored a knockout blow. What makes you so certain that in a one-on-one debate she'll fare any better?
Because, well, he didn't have to stand the fight for a long time. He just had to defend himself for a few minutes. And he's edgy. That's his problem. He's edgy because he doesn't have beliefs. And this is the fact that he doesn't have beliefs. He just fights for interests. And you see, when I hear Mrs. Le Breton saying, "I jump ships," it strikes me to see that around Emmanuel Macron, you see only people who jump ships. How many times? Some of them jump ships once, some two times or three times.
Hasn't Marine Le Pen's party jumped ship? It used to be a very neoliberal party, and now it's decided to be more socially.
We've ever sailed the one ship.
So when
France, before
France,
the old Marine Le Pen,
and this is the ship.
The old Marine LePen was not protectionist.
Marine Le Pen is 48. I don't see her as being an old politician. She has experience, and you know what? To me, the ultimate test in this world that we live in, which is a very dangerous world, is you have to be a leader who has to play in the big league with Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin. I mean, Emmanuel Macron is not up to par with these guys. He waits in another category. He can't fight these guys. So we need a true stateswoman, and she's the one. Emmanuel Macron is not fighting in his league. I'm sorry. And the French will discover that in a few days.
Mr. Salah, we had a similar debate last week, I think.
Did we?
You pounded your assertions on me that we would be out of the race and you would be front of the race.
I said this?
So, yes, you did last week. And so hopefully you'll be wrong again. But anyway, you're very assertive and sure of yourself, but history will tell.
Sure.
And I'm quite confident that
Sure.
you will be proven wrong again.
Famke Krummeler, let me ask you, you just heard Michael Salah mention Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Were they factors at all in what people decided at the ballot box this past Sunday?
I doubt it. France has a lot of national issues that were discussed in this campaign. I think the international issue that was being discussed is Europe and being part of the European Union and of the Eurozone. And then we discussed unemployment and terrorism, very national issues. Obviously, people were looking outward. Putin's role in this election was discussed a few times, but ultimately the decisive factors at the end of the day were more national issues, I'd argue.
Back in 2005, the French voted against a European constitution. What we saw on this campaign trail was Emmanuel Macron brandish the European flag. We saw European flags at his election night party here in Paris.
Yes, definitely. And interestingly, a majority of the French, when you even look at the most recent polls, still want to stay within the European Union. I think the real debate is, do they want to have further integration or do they want to continue within the European Union more or less as it is and concentrate on a few specific projects? But if you take this into account, the majority of the French are still pro-EU, and at the same time, almost half of them now voted for anti-EU candidates, you can see that there is somewhat of a disconnect between what they claim on the one hand and what they vote for on the other hand. So it's definitely interesting.
Marine Le Pen will need to double the amount of votes she got in the first round. Can she do it?
I think it would be extremely difficult for her to do that. In France's electoral system, in the second round, you need voters that report their votes to you, so voters that didn't vote for you in the first round and will do in the second round. On that front, Macron is better positioned because he's a centrist candidate, so he will have an easier time to collect votes from people that are on his left and on his right. Marine Le Pen, she will be able to get few votes from Fillon voters, a few maybe from Mélenchon, but it will be difficult.
Some more from Dupont-Aignan too?
Oh, he has not.
All right.
He has not said anything yet.
On the hashtag F24 debate.
You don't need to be said anything. When you're grown up, you vote for whoever you think defends your
Well, I know a lot of
most.
Dupont-Aignan voters who would never vote for you. So I wouldn't count on all their votes.
Well, actually, I think on Marine Le Pen's best chances are if actually a larger number of people don't turn out, paradoxically. Because if there's a high level of abstention, her electorate is much more mobilized. The point about Macron is that it's a very heterogeneous coalition that he's going to have to put together in order to get more than 50% of the vote. And it's not even clear, François Fillon, for example, called on his electors to vote for Emmanuel Macron. I'm not sure how well that's going to be followed. Even if Mélenchon eventually calls on his people to vote for Macron, it's not clear how well that'll be followed.
On the hashtag F24 debate, the biggest concern for Macron versus Le Pen isn't the right flocking to her, it's abstentionism on the left. A little bit abounding what you just said, Sudir. 2 weeks, it's a very short, compact second round race, which, as was mentioned, includes that one and only face-off between the two candidates in a debate. Who's going to own the conversation over the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think the cold light of daylight will shine on both of them. Will shine on their strengths, and they both have strengths, but it'll also shine on their weaknesses. Marine Le Pen's big weakness is that her economic program in particular is not viewed as credible by most of the experts. And one of her policies, which is to actually withdraw from the euro, is actually unpopular among a majority of French people. So that's going to be something that I'm sure Macron will try to exploit. Macron's problem is that by virtue of the fact that he's neither on the right nor on the left, people don't have a very clear view of what a future Macron presidency will look like in terms of specific policy. And one of the things he's going to have to do, I think, between the first round and the second round, is actually put more flesh around that bone, give people a kind of real sense, not just on these a lot of small measures that he has announced, which I think are kind of interesting, but a kind of big picture of what France will look like 5 years after a Macron presidency.
Famke, does Marine Le Pen do big picture better than Emmanuel Macron?
I guess she has more policies that are very clear. People know what she exactly stands for.
Thank you,
Macron has been trying to obviously get votes on the left and on the right. If you defend a centrist program, often it's unclear at the end of the day what exactly you're defending, right? And I think what I wanted to add is that Macron's problem is the same as Marine Le Pen's, but I think Macron voters are more aware of that, is that neither of them will have a majority in the next parliament, or at least very unlikely will do so.
Yeah, next parliament, where the elections are next month.
Right, exactly. So in June, actually. And people will ask themselves, how can either of them, independent of who it will be, end up governing this country? It has never happened before that somebody who's not from a traditional party is in the second round and will be able, how do they actually govern? How do they get a majority?
How do they, you see, François, you were asking who owns the light in that election. Well, let me tell you that actually Marine Le Pen has been owning the light from the get-go, because she won the battle of ideas in the sense that
she finished second.
We're going to in the sense that today the line, the breaking line is not between the left and the right; it's between the patriot and the globalists. And Emmanuel Macron is, of course,
all right. What is that fault line? If it isn't left versus right, we'll talk about it when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.